So I got an email from a client the other day asking why a new build that is now a resale is about $100,000 more than what the builder is selling it for. I thought it was a great question, so I figured I'd answer it on camera. That way you guys can all understand what's going on here. How's it going, everybody? Jeff Zahler. Got a great email from a client the other day basically wondering why a home that's technically a resale now, but it's a new construction home, was priced for $100,000 more than what the builder is offering. Told her it was a great email, so shout out if you're watching, and told her I would do a little video on it. So I want to kind of jump into this. There's a few items of why the price could be a little bit different. Number one is a builder, when they talk about pricing, they're always talking about their base model. Remember that. So the prices start from X. So that doesn't include any of the upgrades that a client is making, or somebody who's building a house is making. So that sometimes can add 10 to 20% of the base price. So these houses were in the 700,000 range. So right away, if the base is only about 650, it could be 700 or 725 with the upgrade. So that's number one. The second thing is a builder, when they're gonna deliver a home to you, they're taking care of the front landscaping. They are not taking care of the backyard. They're gonna leave a backyard basically dirt for you. That's it. So the paver stones or the grass or the fake turf or the pool or whatever you want to put in, that's going to be on your dime. So a lot of times a seller may put that stuff in, it costs them money, and that way they're trying to kind of recoup some of their investment. So that's number two. Number three is purely time value of money. You love new homes, right? We all love new construction. We love how it looks and feels, right? But do you want to wait 5 or 6 months for that home to be built? The answer is probably not. So a lot of these times these people are saying, hey, you could buy a new build and wait 5 or 6 months, or you can buy this one. Hey, these are the upgrades that were done for the house. If you like it, you can move in 30 days. If you're paying cash, you can move in 10 days, right? So that's the third reason. You get a little time value thing there. Fourth reason, going back to the builder, a lot of times when builders actually release different phases, if you will, they'll actually increase the level of the base cost. So, right now, if the builder's base is 600, a year ago or 7 months ago, that base may have only been 550 or 575 or something like that. So on top of, having to pay more for upgrades and everything, just the base model may actually be more expensive than it was when this house was bought. So think about that. And then the fifth reason is closing costs and commissions, right? So you're not selling, if you're selling a home for 700K, you're not walking away with 700K. We know that, right? There's closing costs, there's commissions to be paid, which come off the top. So between those 5 things, you may actually see on paper a home that looks more expensive than what the builder's building it for now. And sometimes it is, right? Obviously some of these people are trying to make a profit, but the profit number is usually not as much or nearly as much as people think. In this case, the response I got when I kind of typed this out to our client was, totally thought, you didn't even think about that. You're right, they're probably not making much on this at all, or if anything. And I said, yeah, that's kind of what happens, right? Some people try to speculate on things and feel like they're gonna get a huge premium. And you know what? $600,000 to $700,000, $100,000 premium does sound like a lot. But if that $100,000 extra has cost that person 60 or so, and they have to pay commission, they're not walking away with a lot of money, right? So keep that in mind. Just thought it was a great email, so thank you so much for sending that email, Casey. I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions about new builds or even brand new resales like that, let us know, right? We can kind of walk you through the concept of why the price is where it is, give you a better idea, and make you more knowledgeable when it comes time to buying your next house. Take care.